What is up, everyone? JD here. Hope you're doing well today. I'm going to do my full review for the Tactile Maverick Fat Carbon Purple Haze. Let's get into it. So this one here we're going to do a re-review on because there's a couple of things that I want to hit on. So if you didn't catch the full titanium review, because it was kind of the initial review, I talked a little bit about some of the issues that I had with it and then the warranty replacement and experience that I had with Tactile, which was great. They took care of all the issues. My feedback to them would be, let's get that QC out the door ramped up. And I feel like some of that may have been, it could be luck of the draw, but I think some of that may have been addressed here. So let's really quick run through some size comparisons. We're going to first check it out against the Pony Stout, and then we're going to check it out against the Kubi Titius, which is the 14C28M blade titanium handled that you can get for about $100. It's a really good value. And then the Pony Stout, I think there may be, at the time of the filming of this, a few of those still left in stock. That is a really cool fifth pocket knife that you can also throw in some pouches. Here it is against the Benchmade Bug Out, which is more of a medium-sized EDC. I would consider this more full-size because of the length, but it is very skinny, like a Atom. So as you can see here, this is something that I would actually compare more so against the Atom than I would say like a Bug Out. I think they have the tagged out, but I wouldn't say that's a comparable knife in my opinion. I think the Atom is much more comparable. They're very thin slicing knives, more thin in the handle. You have contouring to help you a little bit here, and you have more height with slightly less contouring on the Atom to help with those ergos. And then just really quick against a couple of Spydercos for anyone out there more familiar with like the Para 3 or the Shaman or Para 2, which I think is very close in length to the Shaman. So if you have the Paramilitary 2, PM2, it's going to be very comparable to that Maverick. So let's go ahead and do some profile comparisons. Since it is a full-size knife, I just want you to see how much thinner it is than the Shaman. And then I also would like to show you the thinness against the Atom, because I feel like it is just a little bit thinner than the Atom. But the Atom, I think, has a more gradual contour to it. This is very steep contouring start to finish. You can see how thin it gets out towards the edges on this knife. And this here, I haven't weighed yet. That titanium variant of the Maverick, even though I do like the way that the milling on that titanium looked, I really didn't love the weight. The weight on this is awesome. It's coming in at under 3 ounces, very lightweight like the micarta, but you're getting that carbon fiber that doesn't flex or bow, and that really makes a difference on how this feels ergonomically, because I handled the Maverick with the micarta at the Blade Show, I think it was, and that felt very flexy. This doesn't feel nearly as flexy. This is very rigid for as thin as that carbon fiber gets out here, that fat carbon. One of the things that I really like about this, it is very neutral in hand, but the milling on here does give extra grip. So ergonomically, this feels very nice. You do have a nice guard here as well, because with this drop point, it's going to be really good for puncturing into whatever it is that you need to cut. And then because it is so slicey and it's a very thin blade with a very well done factory edge on all of them, they had very good factory edges. Goes through the material really well, and I actually am ready today with my paper here to go. This still is the factory edge on here. I have not had a chance to break anything down with this particular model, but the other one, I ran into the fuller there. The other that I have used went through that cardboard like it was nothing. So very good factory edge on this one. I mean, just super nice. They did a great job. If I can stop running into the fuller, I need to move my finger up here and take advantage of that little landing spot there to help keep myself in the middle. And that last part was me actually turning the knife while trying to cut a little too early. But as you can see, it went through the majority of the paper when I was cutting properly very well. And the factory edges, and then the Magna cut on the first one, it was the first one that I really tested well before I did the review. That one did not end up with any type of blemishes whatsoever. When I went back after breaking down the cardboard, I went back to testing it on the paper, and it went through the paper really smooth. So I really like that a lot. I really like this knife. It has grown on me more and more, and because this one came with absolutely no issues on the first attempt, that made me feel relieved, because it was the third knife for the titanium and this one here that felt more consistent. I feel like the lock rock was just a little unfortunate. I'm not quite sure if it was the stop pin or if they went too far with the grind, but this one feels absolutely solid. As it has broken in, it's gotten to the point where I was able to tighten it down a little bit more and still get that drop shutty action, as it's going to make a liar out of me on camera. But I have, it's definitely smooth at that time. I'm not quite sure. So I think it may need to be broken down and cleaned a little bit at this point, because I have been carrying it for a little while and using it, but I haven't had an opportunity to clean it, polish up the washers, and oil it yet. And when I did that with the third one, that made a huge difference, because I was able to really get that one cleaned up and smooth and drop shut and very minimal play. Like, you would have to wrench on it. Like this one here, with a medium wrench on it, you can still feel a little bit of the movement to try to keep that action going smoothly. I think cleaning it, polishing up the washers and everything would really just take it over the top, but that means I'd have to reset the pivot. All of them with the pivots, the way that they've designed them, you need the thread locker, especially if you're trying to balance just barely having any play and it almost being like a fall shut knife. You're going to need that thread locker for that. Anybody that's done anything with Foster Braun washer knives, whether they be Spyderco's or Benchmade's, whoever, Hogue, you're familiar with that. Another thing that I like on here is you got a good sharpening tool on here. I wish the edge termination came back on here a little, but you have no smile and you have a couple of sharpenings. With this one here, the way that it locks up, the lock bar is way back here. So the lock bar is hitting back here, and I'll try to zoom in and get a good angle of that. I'm having a hard time seeing it on the camera, but it is, yep, I do have that screwdriver right here still. So it is way back here. So your lock bar is way back here where it's hitting for the stop, that acts like the stop pin also. So you can actually take this out a little bit, because your actual edge termination is right there. How am I going to get this angle? This angle, it's right here. And I don't know if you can see that. Let me turn it upside down and then try to find it again. So your edge termination's right there. So you got a little bit of sharpening left on the edge termination, but again, you can actually just I would actually just cut in at a 45 like that as you go, and kind of do it a little bit like, is it CMB? No, it's Chris Reeve, like Chris Reeve does. Chris Reeve does, oh, I got my Sabins up here, sweet. So Chris Reeves does that 45, and I would just do that. I would actually just take that 45 right through there, and if you're not comfortable doing it, that's something that you can send to any machinist. They'd knock that out in a heartbeat. That would probably be my main feedback. That, and I just don't love the thumb studs and the crossbar lock studs. They're fine. They work fine. But I have found that I really don't like those. I really prefer, where's my bug? I really prefer this type of stud on both the crossbar lock and on the knife itself. Those to me are my favorite. This one here is like almost, it actually is locked up solid. And I've had this one for a couple years. I've taken it apart, cleaned it, and always just just lightly touch those Foster Braun's washers up. No up and down, no side to side. I know people hate on Benchmade, but damn, man, they have perfected this lock system and how it works. It is crazy, and it is perfectly centered. I mean, it's just a great model, and that's what I know that these will get to. This one too. I haven't had this one as long. This one came a little bit better dialed from the factory than some of the other Shamans that I've come across, but I've had Shamans where you can just, I mean, that's bananas. I mean, when I wrench on it, I can feel the click, but just grabbing it medium, I'm not really feeling anything at all there. And a lot of their Para 3s, the Yojimbo, Sage, the Sage 5, they come like that too. What am I missing on this? Lockup's good, no lock stick. It definitely needs to be cleaned out. It was behaving better before. You know, you can give it a little flick and it probably would break in, but honestly, taking it apart, cleaning it, lubing it up, something that's really easy done. Matter of fact, leave your thoughts and comments down below. And if you're interested in that, let's go ahead and knock that out real quick. If you're interested in seeing what I'm saying you want to do with these to get them locked up, we're gonna have to Loctite it, thread locker, and we're gonna have to let it sit, because that'll need to cure just a little while, not long. You can leave it for a few hours. Oh, I didn't zip this up. But let me show you really quick what I'm talking about. It's not hard to do. It's not super hard to do. It is a little bit difficult if you haven't done them before, and you need to have some patience. So what you want to do is you want to just, as you can see, this has some thread locker on it. You want to bring it all the way out. You're going to want to clean whatever they put in there off. When this spins around, pay attention to that, because this milling pattern matches a certain way. So you just want to pay attention to how you put that back. And as you can see, they have thread locker on here as well. And you can use some rubbing alcohol or adhesive remover to take whatever is on there completely off. But what I have found with this, it looks like it's just the same style. Yeah, because it's completely clean now. Same style thread locker that you would see anywhere else. With this, actually, let's pull that pivot back out. Or not. We'll leave it there. And I would grab something a little bit smaller. Lay your blade down on your working surface. Pull your crossbar lock back. And then just push your pivot out. And you can see it comes right out, no issues whatsoever. I still have the lock bar out, and it has fallen out completely. What you can do from here, man, they lube the crap out of that, and you can see how dirty it is. Let me grab a clean spot on the rack right here. We'll stick it in. This is why I say it's really good to take these, clean them, re-lube them. It's just going to make it operate smoother. You see how much it's still breaking in on the pivot there, and they really threw a ton of grease on these, and I get it. They want it to be as smooth as possible. So what you can do at this point is just bring the blade out. The washers that they use are very much like the Chris Reeve style. They're going to stick to the blade. I got a little dog hair on there, and this is where you're going to be able to just really easily clean these without a full disassembly. I recommend these little, like, I guess they're like electrical for like taking computers down and stuff. Those type of screwdrivers are going to be really good for getting in between the pivot here and just kind of taking your rag or whatever and just kind of cleaning out any dirt and debris that are in there. It's not super dirty, but I would probably run it through there a couple times just to make sure that it's nice and clean, that you've gotten everything that you can get. Actually, you know what might work a little bit better than that? I have these Q-tips that I got. They're not really Q-tips, but they're for working on a motherboard, for cleaning a motherboard dry. That would probably be something where you could take the other end of it and just kind of make sure that you get the cloth in there really good, and then just drag it through. And it looks pretty good. I'm going to also go ahead. There goes that pivot. We'll go ahead and clean that off as well. That collar. Go ahead and clean around here as well, which is going to help get your liners. You can see how much dirt came off there. I'm going to grab a second one. And I know this is supposed to be the review. Hopefully this will help you if you're trying to balance that pivot play rather, side to side play, and cleaning and lubing it up. And this, I'm just going to run it through here just to make sure that I got everything with the cloth. So that should be good and clean. That came out much cleaner the second time around. So what I'm going to do is just with the blade tip down, just going to go ahead and clean all around in here. You can see how much dirt came out that time. Let's see if I can get a little bit more on this one. Yeah, so it's very dirty, which to me means that when we're done here, after we've cleaned it and re-lubed it, it should be that much smoother in all honesty, and that's really clean. So I'm going to take these off. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my cloth and clean all of this up here. And you could, if you wanted to, just take the blade and just rub it across a little bit on your strop. And, you know, make sure that it's nice and smooth and polished. You could do that with some wet 1000 grit sandpaper as well. But just to make sure it feels really glassy, that's just going to help that much more. I'm going to move that up that way. Take your washers and clean them. And I would do the same thing, just lightly rub them across the strop. Make sure that they feel nice and glassy. Oops, that just completely popped out of there. I'm not getting this side closest to my thumb, so I'm just gonna hold it in place with my index finger and try to, it's a little, it doesn't want to hold still, so I'm having to fight with that one a little bit. This one's really clean. The other one had a little bit more like greasy oil on it. This one not so bad. And honestly, they feel pretty good, but I'm just going to roll them right on the edge here of my strop. I'm probably going to need a new one of these because this one's starting to fray up on me a little bit. But as you can see, it's just starting to polish it up a little bit more, make it a little bit more glassy. And then what you're going to want to do at this point, grab your oil of choice. I like Hops gun oil because it works well with the firearms. I mean, let's be honest. And if it works well with the firearms, then why would it not hold up to a knife opening? So I'm just going to take that. It'll break in or work in on its own once we get it in there. And then I'm just going to set this here and try to make sure that it's in place. Don't want the oil slipping off. And then make sure that it's centered up so that when your pivot gets ready to go back in, that you don't have any issues with the pivot. And the oil is just free flowing here. So I'm going to take advantage of that. And I'm going to put it on the bottom side that I want it to. Let's see. It's like all the way up at the tip. There you go. And I do put a little bit excess on here just to keep it from falling off. I don't want it to fall off when I'm trying to put it back on the blade. And then just work it back in place. And the tricky part with this one, my cloth, I put it all over there as I knock the oil over on top of my caddy. The tricky part with this one is going to be trying to put it back in initially. The more times you do this, the better it'll stay in place, but it's never like a clean, easy shot to reinstall this. The other thing with this one, I realized when I reassembled the first one, I was talking about those milling lines earlier. I didn't realize how much those milling lines are facing in the right way. So let me sandwich it initially and get it going a little bit first. There we go. And now that we've got it in a little ways, that oil will help set it. And what you'll have to do is just kind of work it in and then just grab one of your Q-tips or cleaning cloths or anything that you have that you use to kind of clean, and that should help center it up. So it should be somewhat centered. We'll come back to this in just a second to set it down carefully, not letting it slide anywhere. And then what you want to do is find your milling lines. So the milling lines are going up and down this way, and I believe that is what is matching the knife. So I'm going to hold the blade in place carefully and just double check. Yeah, so the milling lines are going this way. I just totally let that move. You don't want to do that. And then you do want to put a good amount of lube on here again with a phosphor bronze washer knife. It does, you know, it has tight tolerances I have found. You want to make sure that you get these lined up in a good spot. What is it getting caught on? Hold on. Because I actually wanted it the other way. There we go. So we will use that as a placeholder. We'll set this back up. And then what we'll do is we'll put this on top so you can kind of get a really good idea, making sure that my lines are going the right way. And then you'll be able to flip the knife over. And then what I would do at this point is keep your tip down and bring it in at a 45. And then bring your middle finger in and your thumb in and bring the lock bar back. And then hold that in place. Use your Q-tip, whatever it is that you're using, screwdriver, to kind of help you line it up. And I just shifted the whole knife over, and let me start over. Maybe I should have started with the sharper side. So let's see here. Milling lines are facing up. Let's see. And like I said, it is a little bit of a challenge if you haven't done it before. There we go, starting to slide in, slide in. Whoop, this one's not over. There we go. Whoop. It's this top washer that doesn't want to move over. There we go. And that should be really close enough to finish pushing all the way through, and the milling lines are facing the same way. So it is a little bit to fumble with initially, but I promise as you do these more and more, it gets easier to do it that way. Of course, you can completely disassemble the knife, which will also work. And I'm just checking to make sure that my milling lines match the pattern again for reassembly. What I'll do now is get my thread locker out. Let me put this away because it's just steadily spewing oil everywhere. Shout out to everyone out there that stood through or watched through this entire video. I appreciate all the support. I love you guys. I hope you have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace. All right, let's cut this off and charge it. And then we'll clean up while that charges.